discouraging time in my life. And the devil tried to get me to take my very own life. Someone might be struggling with this same situation. And I wrote a song that revealed the innermost sentiments of my heart. And the song says, I almost let go. Can I get a witness in here? Had I stopped there, it would have been a sad song. Hallelujah. But the next line says, but God held me close, so I wouldn't let go. Praise. Look at somebody, say, God's mercy kept me. God's mercy kept me, so I wouldn't let go. I almost let go. I felt like I just couldn't take a life anymore. This is my testimony. My problems had me bound. Depression weighed me down. But God held me close, so I wouldn't let go. Say that. God's mercy kept me. Hallelujah. So I wouldn't let go. This song is for someone watching us on television. Come on, sing this verse. I almost gave up. I almost gave up. I was right at the edge of
Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is the West Ward Show. We are here at Boston Praise Radio. I'm here with an amazing brother from the community. This is Brother Jeff. He has been doing a lot for Boston over the years. I met the brother about I would say maybe 2 years ago, I would say. Or just something like that. And ever since I've been connected with Brother Jeff, it's definitely just been an amazing journey. It's very inspirational, and it makes me want to do more than what I'm already doing. So, good morning, Brother Jeff.
Good morning, my brother.
So, tell us, Brother Jeff, what do you do?
That question is so loaded.
Yeah, man.
And I've been striving my best to come up with, the best way to answer that question in a short period of time.
Of course.
But if I had to sum it all up without getting into it, which I will, I would say that I know that I'm duty bound to do the work with our people, because that's the reason I'm here. The Honorable Minister Farrakhan, he has a lecture, and it's entitled to the exact, I don't know the exact title, but it's dealing with finding your purpose in life. And so I'm trying to walk into that. My eyes are wide awake, wide open, trying to identify what that looks like, and being in the community like you stated, and assisting our people in any way that I can is the way I would sum it up. But if I had to get into it, I would say I supervise an engagement team in Nubian Square. I teach recovery education for those striving to be recovery coaches. First and foremost, I'm a husband, a father.
Okay, bro.
Let's start there. What I'm saying? That's how to get into the work. And I'm brother, Brother Jeff, man. That right there, better than the title of, president or CEO. We want to treat each other the way we want to be, treated. We want to treat others. So I see myself as a brother, and I try to do my best in dealing with each and every person that I see, no matter what their condition is, in that manner. So I'm a brother in the Nation of Islam. That work right there is something that's been going on before I was born, and the relationship that the brothers who are no longer here have established, the work that they went through, the sacrifice that they went through in order to establish the nation, specifically dealing with Boston, you know, it rings bells and it has a lasting effect. So I'm walking a walk that others walked ahead of me, and trying to do the best that I can on a daily basis with a positive mindset and just really serious, man. You know, I had to come into, in the work there has to be a little bit of levity, brother Jeff, because normally, I'm a soldier, man. I'm staunch and but I had to come into the understanding that levity is important in the work that we do, because we're facing so much, travesty when it comes to our people in the community.
Right.
We're facing so much disrespect and hate, and that there are those that don't want us to live, black men and women in North America.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we have to have balance, and so that's what I'm saying.
I would say you also been in Boston for quite some time. You would say yourself, right?
Yeah, yes. So I wasn't raised in Boston. I've always been in Boston. My family's lived in Boston. But over the last, I would say 12, 14 years, I've been in Boston. So,
like 12, 14 years. Like, what is that? Like early 2000s, like, right? So what would you say from like your experience in the early 2000s of Boston? Like just being a black man, like that experience, because like back then I would say crime was even more heavier, just having like to go through that and navigate life, but yet somehow you still chose to go down the narrow straight path and make the right decisions. And you're seeing in real time how like there's a lot of gang violence, there's a lot of drugs in the community, there's a lot of just violence in general. What made you just like want to stay on this path to make sure that like we see you as the man you are today,
Yes, sir. The man you see sitting in front of you is not the man of the early 2000s. If I had to tell you what it was like then to now, a lot of it I probably don't remember because I was drunk. You know what I mean? I was under the influence of something. I was depressed. I had insomnia. You know what I mean? My life, when I thought I was doing real good myself. I thought I was doing real good. And it wasn't until I've always been around the teachings in the Nation of Islam, but I did a deep dive, a 5-year deep dive into the teachings, into, science, into mathematics, and, just to come into a understanding of who I truly am. The teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad give us an understanding of who God is, who we are, and who our open enemy is. So with that information, it pretty much unlocked the brother Jeff that sits here in front of you, because it's always been there. Right. God has given us everything that we need. Every single one of us has it inside of us. Right. But we have to tap in, we have to be intentional, and if I'm being honest with you, it wasn't a choice. Allah put me down to my knees in submission, and I had to go through all those type of hard trials, whether that be dealing with drugs and alcohol, or being shot, or being incarcerated, or any trial one could face. You know what I mean? I feel like I had to go through that first in order to get to this side of it. But what I've came into the understanding of is that I had to go through those trials in order to be able to deal with our people in such a way. To be able to look them in the eye when they're talking about, a certain situation. I could say, yes, I do know what that's like, and then that right there instantaneously breaks down the defenses, and I'm able to engage in a way that I would not have been able to if I lived a sheltered life, or if I lived in the burbs, or if I had a different life than I had. So, yeah.
No, that's definitely very powerful, just to be able to overcome just all those trials and tribulations, and just even addiction itself, it's definitely hard to just kick the can, So it's just for you to be able to just figure that out through that time, and to be such an inspiration, to be such a strong community leader in Boston, it's definitely enlightening for the youth who are still trying to figure out what they want to be in the future. Also just dealing with the day-to-day, constantly around that gang violence, and just to be able to see someone like you who actually said, you know what, all this isn't for me, I'm actually gonna prep up, you know, and then take care of myself, you know. My brother told me once that it's important to tend to your own garden because we spend a lot of time working on other people's gardens, but yet when are we ever taking care of our own flowers, you know? So it's nice that you actually like figured that path out. And I also wanted to ask you, from just that time till now, like what would you say our community would need in order for others to make those types of changes in their own lives, you know? Just to be able to just say, hey, the life I'm living right now isn't great, but yet I want to live a better life. Like, what would you say is some key factors, whether it be from the community itself, us like coming together and unifying, or even just from city funding to fund a program? Like, what would you say is like a good avenue to tackle some of the problems that we're facing in the Black community?
Wow, I think you hit it in the head with the first thing you stated. Because historically, you know, we rely on, you know, funding from the city or the government. And we know that at the end of the day, sure, there'll probably be some money put out there, but think about, you know, the United States Constitution or the 13th Amendment or any of these things, right? And when they were enacted, what our condition was and what the government thought of us at that time. You know what I mean? So ultimately what I would say is we need more brothers that are, you know, coming into understanding that they have to change and that they want to change and that they have to just overcome that fear and go ahead and do that to step up to the plate, you know, and be in the community and be that example, because you can't have 50 or 100 or 200 brothers that are on that type of path in this city this large, because think about how many people they may be able to touch and not. So what I would say is that we have to come together. Our unity is so powerful, you know, more powerful than a nuclear, a hydrogen bomb, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says. And the reason we're disunited is not by accident. You know what I mean? That was an intentional breakup, you know, when we were enslaved and brought over here. And so we have to come into that history, and we have to come into whatever it's going to take for us as Black men who are striving, maybe struggling, to just come together and do what is necessary for our people. And that right there will have other people add on, and then they see that, oh wait, that brother's doing it, you know, that's what I want to do too. And that will lead to the more people doing it and a better community. We have to police our own community, and we have to come together as a community across denominational lines, you know what I mean, with a focus on survival, you know.
And with that focus on survival, honestly, like, from what you were saying, it's true, because over the years, they literally broke the families apart, making sure that mothers had enough government assistance, or there was like child support to not even need a father in the home, or yet the father himself, you know, they would put him in prison or put him in jail, so he's not even able to provide for the family. And then it would even come down to the children, how they're trying to put like the sons into like gangs really young nowadays, like 8, 12, like 11. And then the daughters would be off sometimes in the household, sometimes not. So it's just, the government and their implementation of how they wanted to break us apart so we're not united, so we're not a strong force, it's definitely been strong over the years through like white supremacy, racism, the Jim Crows, redlining. They made sure that our education wasn't even up to par, so then we even understood just how the law is made, you know. Like, there's been a lot of pushes for our own schools, our own teachings, our own education, so that we're able to teach our youth, teach our own people what's real, you know, because I'm sure when you was growing up in school and when I was growing up in school, a lot of the information that you was taught wasn't applicable to your adult life. And not only just that, even just some of the history that you was taught in those books wasn't accurate. You know?
That's right.
So it's just, it's enlightening and fun to be able to teach people about our true history, but yet it's also, we're only a few people, you know? So it would be great if we had our own institution of some sort where we can actually teach the people, you know, whether that be financial literacy, whether that be about history, whether that be about taxes or credit score, how to build a business, you know, just to be able to get our people in a narrow straight line going forward, so then we're all able to thrive instead of struggle.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. You were talking about the youth, and you know, I think it's important to highlight that point and talk about that for a minute, because our young brothers and sisters, man, they're hurting, man.
Right.
And what I've learned from being out in the community and walking right up to them, you know, because a lot of our brothers that have a me mug on, you know, or they'll be strapped with their gun showing. You know what I mean? Like, come over here if you dare. You know what I mean? And the way to break some of that up is by walking right over there. Peace, brother. How you doing, King? You know what I mean? You know, what you up to today? It throws them off. Why? Because the majority of people who see a young brother like that look at them as you know, they're not redeemable. You know what I mean? Or they're a gangster or a little thug or whatever it may be. Right. Instead of looking past that and seeing the bright young little brother or young sister, or even a little bit older, right? I think that the youth feel let down by the older generation, and I think that us as your age specifically, you know what I mean? They need to see more of you, you know, because when they do, they get an example in front of them. I think that a lot of the programming, we're talking about the 90s, I think, or the 2000s, that was in place in Boston for young adults is no longer there. You know what I mean? So more people are on the block. You know, more people are in the house and not coming out. You know, some of the young brothers is dealing with gang violence to the point where they don't come out because they fear being shot.
Right.
You know, so they stay in the house, and that leads to, you know, isolation and all different types of things. But
not even just that, but also the cut recently. You talk about how they did that in the 90s and early 2000s on inflicting onto youth jobs and youth opportunity. And now we're looking today in 2026 and they're doing the exact same thing, cutting down the actual fundings for youth jobs. And it's going to have the same effect, you know, as they say, like history repeats itself. That's why we need to study history. You're telling me this already happened in the past, and yet it's currently happening right now. Right before the summer, they're telling us, oh, they're cutting youth jobs. There's not going to be a lot of jobs available for the youth. So how do you think they're going to spend their time?
Right.
You know, it's like there's going to be a few that actually figure it out and, you know, go down that straight path. But as you said, you know, there are a lot of brothers and sisters, when they walk outside their homes, they're already in fear. They're already in danger. You know, it's already survival mode. They got to go get the gun, or they got to call up their friends for protection. You know, it's challenging, you know, because I have a friend who lives in that type of situation over there in the Bury side, JP, and it's sad to see that, like, he can't truly enjoy what our city has to offer and also the black community has to provide, simply over the fact that his life is in danger, you know. So it's just it's sad, you know. And going back to youth jobs, this is a way for people to help support their families, you know, because rent is extremely high right now. The cost of living is extremely high in Massachusetts. I believe it's number one, if not top three, for like one of the most expensive places to live in the United States of America. But yet the salaries don't even equate to remotely try to figure it out, you know. So it's definitely challenging trying to see what City Hall, what the mayor is going to do to provide more options for the youth, so then that they're able to prosper, whether that be through violence prevention programs, whether that be through educational programs, or whether that just be from simply just having a job, you know, to be able to afford their growing life into college, or be able to help their mother or their father pay the bills, you know. So now it's just what's gonna be our plan to help these youth over the summer? Like, is there, I mean, I know you're a part of a few organizations, so I already know that you're gonna be out there trying to see like what you can do, but do you think that there's a way for us to save the youth from being able to not not have jobs, because it'll be important for them to work, to go to school, to build up their education, to build up their finances, you know, so they can have some more assets. But yeah, this is a hindrance on our community. So what do you think is a solution for that?
That's an amazing question that I don't have the answer to, you know. But, you know, we could, you know, that's why it's important for us to do for self. You know what I mean? That's why it's so important, brother. Because when you're doing for self, you get into a position where you can employ, you know, the youth. You know what I mean? Like, or collaborate with another person who's doing for self,
right,
and come up with something for 5 or 6. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that could lead to someone else having an idea to collab with someone else, and they do. You know what I mean? So like, that's the piece dealing with that unity that's incorporated in that. You know, doing for self. You know, this actually May 16th, we have what we call a Saviors Tour. And brothers from around the nation are going to be coming to Boston. We're going to have about 200 black men suited and booted hitting all the hoods.
That's awesome.
You know, going to all the communities where our people live. And we're going to make our way around a lot of the city, and we're going to wrap it up with a peace rally, community peace rally, right there in Grove Hall. And now this initiative is going to be the relaunch of the 10,000 Fearless. And so the peace rally, community peace rally, will be at 4 o'clock on May 16th, right in Grove Hall.
Okay.
And you know, we're gonna have everyone there. We're gonna have artists there. You know, I have some confirmation, so but we're gonna have mathematics will be there.
Okay.
Maybe Exit Fame might be there.
Okay.
You know, Edo G possibly be there. You know, so it's gonna be really nice.
Yeah.
And the gist of it is to relaunch the 10,000 Fearless Peacemakers. We've been led by our Minister Randy Muhammad over the last 6, 7, even more than that years, hitting the streets in Orange. You know, Orange deals with under construction, right? So we in our community, it's not a color of a certain gang or anything like that, and we're out there engaging, you know, bringing peace wherever we go. So the 10,000 Fearless Peacemakers.
We definitely need that, you know, like that's actually like really cool, because honestly, being able to go into every neighborhood like that and to see what's going on in real time, like today, like that could cause a lot of change, like in just a single day.
Oh man, it's gonna be a big day. It's gonna be big. I'm excited, you know, and I didn't even talk about it. I'm also a bow tie maker. You know, that's one of my businesses.
Okay.
I make bow ties, so I'm in the process of making 100 bow ties for that event right now. So I was up until like 4:30 this morning, man. But I was like, I'm gonna get here. I'm gonna get here today to be on my brother's show.
No,
but
I appreciate that.
That's a big event, and so just, you know, Grove Hall, May 16th, 4 to 6 p.m. community peace rally. We want everybody to show up. We want to hear your voice. We want the youth to show up at the end of the day, you know, and that could actually lead to young brothers being able to engage in mediations with other young brothers. You know, that's something we do. So if there's a beef, you know, whether you're directly involved in it, you know about it. We could get connected and strive to do a mediation in a neutral location, and try to, you know, avoid it turning to bloodshed, and do our best to mediate the situation. So there's been several cases where that has been the case. People came in ready to pretty much kill each other, you know, and left out of there with some of them with at least the understanding that they're not out to kill each other no more. Some of them coming to the realization that what they were beefing over wasn't even an issue, you know. So we do that. We do that. So that's a major day, a major event coming up. And also, we talked about, you know, learning our history. We talked about unity. And so every Sunday at 11 a.m. and 10 Washington Street at Muhammad Mosque number 11, Minister Randy Muhammad, he gives a powerful interactive lecture where he teaches from the Bible, from the Quran. But the thing I tell people about that is this, is that it's about me and you.
Right.
It's about survival. It's about now. That's what you're going to hear in there. You know what I mean? So I invite everybody out, including this Sunday at 11 o'clock, 10 Washington Street, Muhammad Mosque number 11. And I say, do the knowledge for yourself.
Right.
There's no commitment to walk through the door.
Right.
Come build with your brothers. Come break bread and see what you see, hear what you hear, and make a decision for yourself based off of your experience. So that's what I tell brothers. So I know you're well versed in coming on out and you know.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to learn a lot. from Mosque number 11 in Grove Hall, because honestly, what they've been doing for the Black and brown community for Boston for so long is they're definitely a pillar and the foundation of what we're trying to create for the future. And I really appreciate that, to be able to take part in that, to learn, to study, to be a student, in the orientation classes, to understand just where we come from, who we are, to remember that, again, the Asiatic black man is the original man, the original creator, the cream of the crop, to be able to understand that this entire planet was created for people to prosper, but it was also, we have to remember the blueprint, and the blueprint leads us back to Africa, But I also love that what I'm learning there is that it's important for us to stay together as a community, to help each other out. Just like as you said, what's happening on May 16th. You said everyone come down to Grove Hall at what time?
4 o'clock, 4 p.m.
4 p.m. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim, Christian. It doesn't matter what religion, creed, class, or race that you may come from. It's important that everyone who lives within these neighborhoods comes together and we have a good time, but also we learn from each other, so then we're able to create the better tomorrow that we've been hoping to see for some time. So no, I definitely appreciate you guys for actually doing that. It's been a medium time for someone to do that, and it's honestly it's expected that Mosque number 11, Muhammad number 11, over there at Grove Hall would be the ones to initiate this process, because you guys have been doing so much for the community for so long, and then also opening up Torchlight. Could you tell me more about Torchlight over there in Grove Hall?
Yeah, Torchlight is a recovery cafe / recovery center. The recovery cafe component is the second recovery cafe in the state of Massachusetts. And that is a model that's a membership-based model, only with 3 qualifications, which is come into the space not under the influence, go to a weekly recovery circle, and give back to the space with whatever you can. Like if you're a cook and you want to give a cooking class, if you're an artist, you want to do teach an art class, just give back to the space in that way. Brother Minister Randy Muhammad and Brother Larry were very intentional about the space. So when you come in, it's beautiful white marble floors. Every day at 5 o'clock, there's a nice hot dinner, not on with silverware and plates, because usually, we go to certain places, a program, we get handed a bag with a sandwich in it, So we want to be intentional about when our people come into the space. It's open to everybody. It's non-denominational. It's not like a religious recovery center. It's a center where people could come in with a focus on recovery and get the help they need, the resources they need. If they need recovery coaches, we have trained recovery coaches in the space. There's nothing like it. And brother, check it out. It's the only black-owned and operated recovery center in the whole state. Let's talk about that for a sec. Think about that. The only one. And there's 39. There's 39 of them.
Neighborhood of Boston too. So it's
right.
just.
Yeah.
So, that being said, but also with the walks you do on Tuesdays, going around Roxbury to the Grove Hall area, and seeing some of our brothers and sisters who are still trying to figure it out. Some are maybe still be struggling with drugs, addiction, and other sorts of things. To actually have a space where they can feel safe, where the staff actually looks like them, where the teachers and also the advocators for them to get better also looks like them, and it's in the heart of the community, so they don't have to go far out to somewhere else where they maybe have to take a few buses to get there when you guys are just down the street. Right. Very accessible. It's definitely going to leave an imprint on what tomorrow is going to look like, having a space like that,
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You mentioned the walks too. So we have it's a collaborative outreach and engagement walk, which stems from 16 different outreach groups sitting in a circle talking about what they were going to do. So I was like, at the end of the meeting, I was just like, you know what? Let's stop talking about it and let's go out there and do the work.
Right.
Let's bring real-time resources that we can actually give to those that are in need. because that's what we're supposed to be doing as outreach.
Right.
You know, that's a whole nother. I mean, we could go down that road if you want, but you know, I find that you know there are agencies that have millions and millions of dollars to do outreach.
Right.
You know, and they're not present in our community specifically. They're in South Boston, and East Boston, and these other places.
Right.
But a Nubian Square or a Grove Hall, you know, if you go into either one of those locations, you're not going to find tons of outreach workers in the space. You know, but we have a collaborative walk that meets behind Silver Slipper every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, as long as it's not downpouring rain. And we go and we bring whatever we have for resources, even if that's just an individual who cares about our community and wants to take part.
Right.
They can also come on the walk.
No, that's definitely important. So, guys, remember that you said Tuesdays, Roxbury by the Silver Slipper at
3 p.m.
3 p.m.
Yes, sir.
So definitely take part of that. And also May 16th, 4 p.m. Over at Grove Hall, there's going to be an amazing activation in the black communities, but also just every neighborhood that they're going to be touching that day. So definitely take part in that as well. But Tuesdays, I think it's important for brothers and sisters of all ages to come out and to support as well, just to be able to see in real time some of the problems that we're facing in the community, and that Torchlight is one of those solutions to solve.
Okay, hold on, I'm gonna flip you to.
Peace and blessings. How you doing, family? Peace and blessings. How you doing, family?
Hello.
Hi. How you doing?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good morning. I'm on the air. I just only have a minute. The reason that I'm calling, reaching out, is because I was listening to 68 yesterday, and it was an argument about all the drug programs that we have, the $40 million that we've been putting into rehab centers and things like that. And the only thing that happens is that people just want to go.
I can't hear you. I think it cut off. But I definitely understand where it was going at first, you know, where it's just like a lot of the money towards these drug programs, as you were saying earlier, they're not being transferred or allocated back into the community with resources. And that's exactly why it's important that Torchlight Recovery is there within the heart of the city, you know, because going to like the walks that you take on Tuesday, you see in real time some of the people that need help, and some of them end up actually do coming to Torchlight and changing themselves, and they see how a lot of the brothers and sisters are dressing their attire, and it makes them want to dress better, and then it makes them want to like read more and like educate themselves and become more of a good standing citizen in society that actually wants to give back, you know.
Yes,
so
sir.
I definitely am grateful for a space like that, because you know it's hasn't been that long, but yet I can see the impact already, just like in my day-to-day, just going out through the communities. No, it's definitely been smooth.
Yeah, definitely. There's been people who came in who were early in recovery,
Right.
and it's been in operation about 2 years.
Right.
To see some of them where they're at today, coming in with a smile on their face, and professional, and you know they are in the whatever profession they had or gained or whatever it may be, you know, doing very well, very well. There's several instances of that being the case.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Did you remember what the question she might have had was at all?
She wanted to know what you thought about the money, the $40 million being allocated, because they were talking. She said she heard that they said they were wasting their time on the channel, whatever channel she was watching.
Wasting their time.
Wasting their time on the drug program, all the drug programs, because all people do is end up turning right back around and getting high again.
That, you know, that right there, that mindset and that narrative of you know, on the brothers and sisters who may be struggling with substance use disorder is real. I mean, people you know, have that line of thinking, you know. But what I could say to you is this: is that people do recover. Recovery looks different for everybody. And we have time, or we wrap?
No, I just
Okay.
brother also wanted to come into the room as well.
Oh, cool.
So I was just inviting him in.
Okay. All right. Yeah, but people recover, and it's different for everybody. And there's a stigma attached to, substance use disorder. And, people aren't educated. Some people are not educated and have a certain line of thinking, a hard line. There's a hard line there, you know what I mean?
Right.
But what I will say is that back to people do recover, it's not a waste of time. There's several examples of success stories. I'm sitting here talking to you, right?
Yeah.
But if I didn't have the opportunity, or someone had in their mind, it's a waste of time to try to help this brother, he's just gonna go back to doing it again, then I would be long gone.
Right.
And several people would have lost their lives if that was the case. But there are opportunities to get help, and it is not a waste of time. And my brother probably has a better beat on the 40 billion piece than I. Peace, my brother. Yeah, we were just dealing with a question, and there was someone was asking about the $40 million and how it's going into certain certain programming,
Right.
and that it's a waste of time because people are gonna end up going back and using drugs anyway. And what we thought about the $40 million piece,
Right.
For me, like, my main focus is boots on the ground, doing what I can,
Exactly.
and adding on in any way I can. And
Absolutely.
you probably have a better understanding of what that money is allocated towards, where it's from, and all that type of piece. I'm not sure.
Right.
If you want
Yeah. No, I mean, I have a little bit of idea, but what I've always heard too is like the road to recovery is a journey.
That's right.
It's something that you always have to work on. So you might not be able to, pull that individual in the first time, but it's the constant outreach. But I've heard that works.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to kind of be graceful with people on that journey and understand that the wraparound services and the consistency, like anything, right? Like you don't, when you try to get your little baby to walk, right, the first time that they stumble over, you're not like, you know what? It's just they're never gonna get it, right?
Right.
You keep at it, right? So I think we got to kind of apply it, and unfortunately, when it comes to people in our neighborhood, sometimes we tend not to have that same grace that we want extended to us, but we have to make sure that we are there during that journey.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
And even there's studies where it talks about even if someone does get off drugs,
Right.
how many years later,
Exactly.
it still has an effect on
Right.
their overall makeup. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
people think you put it down and then that person should be fine, or just drop it down. It's a choice. And I come from a hard line thinking myself at one point where people would talk about it's a disease, and I was like, man, it's not a disease. At one point in my life, I was like, it's not a disease, man. That's a choice. You know what I mean? They're
Right.
making that decision. But after extensive amounts of studying and being in the community and dressing our brothers and sisters, you realize that, even in the drug, the addictive components that are put in the
Exactly.
drug, you know what I mean?
Right.
Someone who doesn't have any understanding of that won't see or be able to put that in their equation of their understanding of what is actually happening.
Right.
There's that as well.
No, that's definitely true. I mean, just from my family that's over there in Roxbury, OPOG side, just growing up, I would always go over there for holidays, whether that be for Easter or for Halloween, and just to see some of my cousins or some of my aunts and uncles on that side of the family, a lot of them be affected by drugs in the community, whether that be like crack or cocaine, or whether that be some other type of hard substance. It was always just difficult to navigate through that, even to the day where my grandma passed just 2 years ago. Some of that side of the family came over, they're bringing their pipes right up on the church steps, just going right up on the church steps. I'm just like, bro, like, your sister or your first cousin just passed and you over here just like, so it's just like, some people even have a hard time even in those serious settings to even just put it down, because like as you said, it's hard to do so, and it changes just your whole body's just how it functions, you know. That even goes back to the mental aspect of it as well, you know. Things start becoming more so in a mental addiction, and then that starts to affect the rest of your body, you know. Even in like a positive state, when you're trying to manifest something for yourself, when you start thinking positively, you know, positive things start happening around you, and also you just feel better throughout the day. I feel as if when you're under those type of substances, your brain's just in a certain setting where that also affects your body too, and that causes, like, you know, a lot of outcomes, as you say, that later happen in the future once they also put it down, because they've been doing it for so long, their body already had a toll on it. But yeah, I would say that it's still good to put whatever it is down, because at the end of the day, that's when you can start making the serious work, you know, to actually make that change, whether that be going to the gym or, you know, eating right, drinking water, you know, to that aspect of it is definitely important.
That's right. Yeah, and you touched on the mind, body, even in spirit, you know what I mean? A holistic approach, an all-around approach to recovery, you know, is important. Some people are able to just drop it and stop. Some people are able to go to church or to the mosque or the synagogue, and then they change their lives. Some people have to literally go through rehab 25 times, get incarcerated, almost go overdose, and then one day they wake up and it's like, I'm done. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean about recovery is different for everybody. You know what I mean? So no brother and sister is not redeemable. Every single one of us are. And you know, we have to have that mindset, and like we are quick to, you know, forgive certain people, like, oh, don't worry about it, you know, like yeah, but when it comes to you and B, it's like we're, like you were talking about, you gotta be, we're so hard on each other, and that's not a mistake neither, bro. We was talking about